Step back from the pump.
Like
Turn around now.
prepaid. Pump's frozen. You don't have cause to detain me.
Keep talking and you're going in cuffs for obstruction.
Then cuff me, because I'm the city legal director, and this body cam will end your career.
Officer Kyle Vinson had been patrolling the streets of Detroit for just over 5 years when he made the decision that would implode his career and cost the taxpayers of this city a staggering $6.4 million. He was 29 years old, a man who walked with the heavy, deliberate stride of someone who believed the badge on his chest granted him immunity from consequence. He was young, physically imposing, and absolutely convinced that his instinct for spotting trouble was a divine gift. But on a bright, crisp Tuesday morning in October, that instinct didn't just fail him, it led him into a trap of his own making. The setting was the Metro Mart gas station on Jefferson Avenue, a stone's throw from the Detroit River. It was 10 o'clock a.m. The sun was high and glaring off the asphalt, and the morning rush had largely subsided, leaving behind the steady hum of mid-morning commerce. It is the kind of place where the city's diverse population intersects construction workers, filling up massive trucks, office clerks grabbing energy drinks, and the occasional luxury sedan gliding in from the suburbs. Kyle Vinson was sitting in his patrol unit across the street, idling watching the world through polarized sunglasses. His personnel file was a study in aggressive mediocrity. He had 7 prior complaints for discourtesy and 2 for unauthorized searches, all of which had been swept under the rug by a union rep who knew how to work the system. Vinson was the type of officer who referred to citizens as civilians, with a sneer, the type who believed that respect was something you demanded at the end of a baton, not something you earned. He was looking for a reason to assert himself, and unfortunately, the radio was about to give him one. Across the street at pump number 4 stood a man named Marcus Thorne. At 58 years old, Thorne was a figure of immense dignity. He stood 6'2", wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than Officer Vinson's annual take-home pay. He was leaning against a pristine silver Mercedes S-Class, a phone pressed to his ear, his deep voice murmuring instructions to a team of junior attorneys downtown. Thorne wasn't just a successful man. He was the city legal director for Detroit. He was the man who approved the police department's budget, the man who defended the city in federal court, and ironically, the man who had personally drafted the revised protocols on civilian engagement that every officer was required to carry in their pocket. But Vinson didn't see a legal director. He didn't see a pillar of the community or a grandfather of 3. When he looked across the street, responding to the crackle of the dispatcher's voice, he saw only what his bias allowed him to see: a black man standing around where he didn't belong, taking up space, and acting like he owned the place. Vinson threw his cruiser into gear, the tires chirping against the pavement. He wasn't going over there to investigate. He wasn't going over there to de-escalate. He was going over there to teach someone a lesson. It was a collision course set in motion by years of unchecked arrogance about to crash headlong into a mountain of legal authority. And as Vinson pulled a sharp U-turn, cutting off a delivery van, he had no idea that the man he was about to harass was the one man in the entire city who had the power to turn the lights off on his career forever. Before we get into the confrontation, ask yourself this: where are you watching from today? If you believe that badge numbers should be public record and accountability shouldn't be optional, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We are building a community here dedicated to the truth, and we need you with us. To understand the magnitude of the disaster that was about to unfold, you have to understand the man standing at pump 4. Marcus Thorne had spent 30 years in the trenches of the American legal system. He had started as a public defender in the late 80s, fighting for the indigent in courtrooms that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. He had worked his way up through the district attorney's office, then into private practice where he made a fortune, and finally back to public service as the city legal director. Thorne was a man of precision. He lived his life by the letter of the law. He was known in City Hall as the architect because he built cases that were structurally unsound to attack. He was patient, he was brilliant, and he suffered fools poorly. On this particular morning, he was dealing with a frustration that had nothing to do with the law. The credit card reader on the gas pump was malfunctioning. It kept displaying a processing message, spinning an endless digital wheel while the pump refused to dispense fuel. Thorne had stepped inside the store 5 minutes prior to authorize the pump, with the clerk prepaying $50 just to be safe. He had returned to his car, unhooked the nozzle, and waited. And waited. The machine was frozen. Being a busy man, he utilized the downtime to take a conference call regarding a zoning dispute in the historic district. He stood by his car, hand on his hip, waiting for the technology to catch up with his schedule. Inside the Metro Mart, watching Thorne through a smudged plate glass window, was Elias Cobb. Cobb was 55 years old, a man whose life had not gone according to plan. He had been a shift manager at a factory until it closed, then a security guard until he was let go for sleeping on the job, and now for the last 3 years he was a clerk at a gas station. He was bitter, he was tired, and he carried a chip on his shoulder the size of the mesmerizing Detroit skyline he could see, but never touch. Cobb watched Thorne with a growing sense of irritation. He didn't know the pump was malfunctioning. He didn't recall that Thorne had already prepaid inside. Cobb had been distracted by a lottery machine repairman when Thorne had tapped his card on the counter earlier. What Cobb saw now was a black man in a fancy suit standing by a fancy car, talking on a fancy phone and blocking a pump that other paying customers could be using. In Cobb's worldview, this was a personal slight. It was arrogance. He saw Thorne's posture upright, confident, unbothered as a challenge. "Look at him," Cobb muttered to himself, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. "Thinks he owns the damn pavement." Cobb had a history of calling the police. He treated the local precinct like his private security firm. He called for teenagers skateboarding on the sidewalk. He called for homeless veterans asking for change near the air pump. He called for noise complaints in the middle of the afternoon. He liked the feeling of power it gave him, the ability to summon armed men to remove things that annoyed him. He watched Thorne for another 2 minutes. Thorne, still on the phone, tapped the pump screen, trying to reset it. To Cobb, this looked like vandalism or tampering. The narrative in Cobb's head solidified. This wasn't a customer. This was a loiterer, maybe even a scammer, trying to rig the pump. It didn't matter that Thorne's car was worth more than the entire gas station inventory. Bias doesn't deal in logic. It deals in fear and resentment. Cobb picked up the phone. He didn't call the manager to fix the pump. He didn't step outside to ask the gentleman if he needed assistance. He dialed 911, and when he spoke, he didn't describe a man having technical difficulties. He described a threat. The call that went into the Detroit Dispatch Center was a masterclass in distortion. Elias Cobb, leaning over the counter with his eyes fixed on Marcus Thorne, lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, as if he were reporting an active bank robbery. 911. "What is your emergency?" the dispatcher asked, her voice professional and weary. "Yeah, this is Elias over at the Metro Mart on Jefferson, Cobb," said, expecting the recognition that never came. "I got a guy out here refusing to leave. He's blocking the pumps, he's acting hostile, and he's scaring my customers." "Is he armed?" the dispatcher asked. "I don't know." Cobb lied, adding a dramatic pause. "He's got his hand in his pocket, and he's pacing around real aggressive-like. He's been out there for 20 minutes just staring at people. I asked him to move, and he just waved me off. I need an officer before this gets out of hand." None of this was true. Cobb had never asked Thorne to move. Thorne wasn't pacing aggressively. He was standing still, and the only thing in his pocket was a silk handkerchief. But the magic words had been spoken: hostile, refusing to leave, and the implication of a weapon. The dispatch went out. "Unit 4 Alpha 2, I have a disturbance at the Metro Mart on Jefferson. Complainant alleges a male subject loitering, blocking business, possibly hostile. Proceed with caution." Officer Kyle Vinson was 2 blocks away. When the call came through, a smirk touched the corner of his mouth. "Loitering and hostile," Vinson said to the empty car. "Not on my watch." In Vincent's mind, the script was already written. He knew exactly who he was going to find. It would be some vagrant or some thug trying to intimidate the working class. Vincent prided himself on being a cleaner. He viewed his job not as protecting rights, but as enforcing order, his version of order. He didn't care about the nuance of the situation. He cared about submission. He flipped on his lights, not the siren, just the silent spinning blue and red bars that announced his authority. He accelerated, cutting through the mid-morning traffic with aggressive ease. As he approached the gas station, his adrenaline spiked. This was the part he loved the hunt. Meanwhile, at Pump 4, Marcus Thorne was wrapping up his call. "Yes, tell the councilman I'll have the draft on his desk by noon." Thorne said, his voice calm and baritone. "And have Janet call the pump repair service for this station. Their systems are antiquated." He hung up and looked at the pump screen. It still read processing. He sighed, checking his watch. He was going to be late for a meeting with the mayor if this didn't resolve in the next 3 minutes. He decided he would go back inside, get his refund, and go to the station down the block. He had no idea that a predator was turning into the lot hungry for a conflict. Vincent pulled the cruiser into the gas station lot at speed, the tires crunching over loose gravel. He didn't park in a designated spot. He pulled directly in front of Thorne's Mercedes, blocking him in the nose of the police interceptor mere inches from the bumper of the luxury sedan. It was a power move designed to intimidate, designed to say, "You are trapped." Vincent stepped out of the car. He didn't adjust his hat. He didn't check his surroundings. He adjusted his gun belt, hitching it up, and walked straight toward the man in the suit. He didn't see a city director. He saw a target. Officer Vincent marched across the 10 feet of pavement separating him from Marcus Thorne with the posture of a bar brawler. His thumbs were hooked near his belt buckle, his chest puffed out, his sunglasses hiding eyes that were already narrowed in judgment. Thorne looked up from the pump screen, startled not by the officer's presence, but by the aggressive proximity. He took a half step back, his instincts as a former prosecutor kicking in, assess the threat, analyze the body language. What he saw was a young man with too much ego and too little training. "Can I help you, officer?" Thorne asked. His voice was polite, the kind of professional courtesy one public servant extends to another. Vincent didn't return the courtesy. He didn't even say hello. "You need to move this vehicle, now." Thorne blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Vincent barked, stepping into Thorne's personal space. "The manager wants you gone. You're loitering, you're blocking commerce, and you're making people uncomfortable. Get in the car and get lost." Thorne looked at the gas pump, then back at Vincent. He gestured to the nozzle still inserted in his fuel tank. "Officer, I'm not loitering. I'm waiting for this pump to authorize. I've already prepaid inside. The system is frozen." "I don't care about the pump," Vincent snapped. "I care about you complying with a lawful order. This is private property. The owner wants you off it. That makes you a trespasser if you stay 1 second longer." Thorne straightened his back. He had dealt with federal judges who screamed, politicians who lied, and criminals who threatened his life. A rude patrol officer was not going to rattle him. "Officer," Thorne said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming firmer. "I think there is a misunderstanding. I am a paying customer. I have a transaction pending. I cannot move the vehicle while the nozzle is inside the tank, and I certainly am not trespassing." Vincent took off his sunglasses. His eyes were cold, hard, and devoid of intelligence. "Are you a lawyer? You sound like a lawyer. I hate lawyers." "As a matter of fact," Thorne began, I didn't ask for your resume," Vincent shouted, his hand dropping to rest on his taser. "I told you to leave. You are refusing a direct order from a police officer. Do you know what happens next?" "I know exactly what the procedure is," Thorne said, his patience thinning. "And I know that you are skipping about 5 steps of the investigatory protocol outlined in the Detroit Police Manual Section 402. You haven't spoken to the manager to verify the complaint. You haven't asked for my side of the story. You are operating on hearsay and aggression." Vincent's face turned a blotchy red. He wasn't used to people talking back, certainly not with code numbers. He stepped closer, chest to chest with Thorne. "You want to quote the manual, I'll quote you the penal code. Disorderly conduct, failure to obey, obstruction. I can stack charges on you until you can't see the sun, pal." "I am not your pal," Thorne said icily, "and you are making a grave mistake. I am asking you to lower your voice and allow me to retrieve my receipt so I can leave." "You aren't retrieving anything," Vincent spat. "You're getting in that car and leaving, or I'm calling a tow truck and impounding it, and you're going in the back of my cage." Thorne looked at the officer, really looked at him, and realized that logic was not going to work. This man was too far gone on a power trip. Thorne slowly reached for his inner jacket pocket. "Don't reach!" Vincent screamed, jumping back and drawing his taser. "Hands where I can see them." Thorne froze his hands raised slowly to shoulder height. "I am reaching for my identification, officer. I am going to show you who I am." "I don't care who you think you are." Vincent snarled the taser laser dancing on Thorne's expensive tie. "You're a guy about to lose his car." The scene at the gas station had shifted from a misunderstanding to a spectacle. Customers at other pumps had stopped filling their tanks. A woman in a minivan was recording on her phone. The clerk Elias Cobb was watching from the window with a twisted grin, delighted that the arrogant guy was getting taken down a peg. Vincent holstered his taser but kept his hand hovering near it. "Turn around," he commanded. "Face the car." "I will not," Thorne said, standing his ground. "I have committed no crime. I am the city legal director for the city of Detroit. My credentials are in my pocket. If you arrest me, if you touch me, you are violating the very laws you swore to uphold." Vincent laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "City legal director? Yeah, right. And I'm the police commissioner. You expect me to believe that the city legal director is hanging out at a Metro Mart arguing with a beat cop? I expect you to verify it," Thorne said calmly. "Call your supervisor, call the precinct, run my plate. It's a municipal fleet vehicle registered to City Hall. If you had run the plate before you jumped out of your car like a cowboy, you would know that." Vincent hesitated. For a split second, doubt crept in. He glanced at the Mercedes. It didn't have municipal plates. It had standard plates. Thorne's personal car, though registered for city use. Vincent seized on this. "Nice try. I know what city plates look like. You're a liar and a trespasser." Vincent grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, send me a flatbed to my location. 1051 vehicle impound. Subject is non-compliant." "Copy, 1051 en route," the dispatcher replied. Thorne shook his head, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "Officer, you are citing Municipal Code 1051. That code refers to abandoned vehicles on public roadways. We are on private property and I am standing right next to the vehicle. You cannot legally tow this car." "Watch me," Vincent said. He pulled a pair of handcuffs from his belt. The metallic ratchet sound was loud in the sudden silence of the gas station. "You are about to assault a city official." Thorne warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Think very carefully about your next move, son." "Don't call me son," Vincent snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing Thorne's left wrist and twisting it behind his back with unnecessary force. Thorne winced as his shoulder joint was torqued, but he didn't fight back. He knew that any resistance would be used to justify a beating. "I am complying," Thorne announced loudly for the witnesses and the cameras. "I am not resisting. This officer is using excessive force without cause." "Shut up!" Vincent yelled, slamming Thorne's chest against the side of the Mercedes. He wrenched the other arm back. "You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting an officer." "I haven't resisted," Thorne shouted back. His face pressed against the cold metal of his own car. "You refuse to look at my ID. You refuse to verify my identity." "I don't need to see your fake ID," Vincent grunted, snapping the cuffs tight. He made them tight, too tight. The steel bit into Thorne's wrists. "You can tell your story to the judge." Vinson spun Thorne around. The legal director's suit was rumpled, his tie askew. He looked at the young officer with a gaze that should have turned Vinson to stone. "Officer," Thorne said, his voice steady despite the pain. "What is your badge number?" 2944, Vinson said proudly. "Make sure you spell my name right when you write your little complaint from jail." "I won't be writing a complaint," Thorne said. "I'll be writing your termination letter." Vinson shoved him toward the patrol car. "Keep dreaming, buddy. Get in." Officer Vinson felt a surge of triumph as he maneuvered the large man into the back of his patrol unit. This was what police work was about, he told himself, taking control. He had taken a hostile subject off the street. He had protected the gas station. He was a hero in his own mind. He slammed the door on Marcus Thorne, trapping the city legal director in the cramped plastic hard-shell seat of the Interceptor. Thorne shifted his legs, the handcuffs digging into his lower back. He took a deep breath, centering himself. He closed his eyes and began to memorize the timeline. 10:12 a.m. Arrival. 10:14 a.m. Verbal contact. 10:17 a.m. Arrest. No Miranda rights read. No investigation conducted. Outside, the crowd had grown. About a dozen people were now watching. Vinson puffed his chest out, addressing them. "Show's over, folks. Back up. Let the tow truck do its work when it gets here." He walked back to the Mercedes to do an inventory search before the tow. He wanted to find something, drugs, a weapon, anything, to justify the arrest post hoc. He opened the driver's door and began rifling through the center console. He found a leather folio. He opened it. Inside was a gold badge, not a police badge, a City of Detroit executive badge. Below it, an ID card, Marcus Thorne, City Legal Director. Vinson stared at it. His stomach gave a weird lurch. "Fake," he muttered to himself, but his voice lacked conviction. "Gotta be fake." He kept digging. He found a file folder on the passenger seat stamped "Confidential, Office of the Mayor." He opened it. It was a draft of the new police union contract with handwritten notes in the margins. The handwriting matched the signature on the ID. Vinson's hands started to sweat. He looked back at the patrol car. The man in the back seat was staring at him through the wire mesh, his expression unreadable. "No," Vinson whispered. He stole this stuff. He's a con artist." He was trying to convince himself, desperate to maintain the illusion of righteousness. But the radio crackled again. "Unit 4 Alpha 2 Watch Commander is 1023 at your location." Vinson looked up. A white SUV with supervisor emblazoned on the side pulled into the lot. It wasn't just a sergeant, it was Lieutenant Miller. Miller was old school, a 30-year veteran who had survived every administration change in Detroit since the 90s. He was fair tough, and he knew everybody. Vinson swallowed hard. He walked toward the lieutenant's vehicle, trying to put on his best "I've got this handled" face. Miller stepped out of the SUV. He was a big man with gray hair and a face lined by years of stress. He looked at the scene, the blocked pumps, the crowd, Vinson's patrol car, and the silver Mercedes. "Vinson," Miller barked. "What do we have here? Dispatch said you're towing a vehicle." "Yes, sir," Vinson said, saluting unnecessarily. "Subject was loitering, refused to leave, became hostile. I had to detain him for disorderly. He's in the back. I'm doing an inventory on his car now." Miller looked at the Mercedes. He frowned. He recognized the car. He had seen that car parked in the VIP lot at police headquarters. "Who is the suspect?" Miller asked, walking toward the Mercedes. "Refused to ID, sir," Vinson lied. "Claimed to be some city official. Showed me some fake badge I found in the car." Miller stopped. "Fake badge?" "Yeah, says city legal director or something," Vinson scoffed. "Guy's delusional." Miller's face went pale. The color drained out of him as if someone had pulled a plug. He pushed past Vincent and looked into the open door of the Mercedes. He saw the file folder. He saw the gold badge. "Oh my God," Miller whispered. He spun around, his eyes wide with panic. "Vincent. Where is he?" In the unit, sir." Vincent stammered, confused by the reaction. Miller didn't run, but he walked with a terrifying speed toward Vincent's patrol car. He ripped the back door open. There, sitting in the gloom of the back seat, was Marcus Thorne, the man who signed the checks, the man who decided which officers got legal defense and which ones got thrown to the wolves. Thorne looked up at the lieutenant. "Hello, Frank," Thorne said calmly. Lieutenant Miller looked like he was about to have a stroke. "Mr. Thorne, sir, I believe your officer has made an error, Frank," Thorne said. "I'd like these handcuffs off. Now." Lieutenant Miller turned on Vincent with a ferocity that startled the crowd. "Unlock him. Now get the keys." Vincent fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking. "Sir, I don't understand. He was loitering." "Shut your mouth." "Vincent," Miller roared. "Do you know who this is? This is Marcus Thorne, the city legal director. You just arrested the man who runs the legal department for the entire city." Vincent's world collapsed. The noise of the gas station faded out, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in his ears. He looked at Thorne, really looked at him, and saw the truth he had been ignoring. The suit, the car, the confidence. It wasn't arrogance. It was authority. Vincent unlocked the cuffs. Thorne stepped out of the car, rubbing his wrists. There were deep red indentations where the metal had bitten into his skin. He adjusted his suit jacket, straightened his tie, and looked at Vincent. "Badge number 2944, Thorne said softly. "Mr. Thorne, sir." Vincent started, his voice trembling. I didn't know. You didn't show me." "I tried to show you." Thorne cut him off. "I tried to explain. You didn't want to listen. You wanted to be right more than you wanted to be just." Thorne turned to Miller. "Lieutenant, I want the body camera footage from this incident pulled immediately. I want the security footage from this gas station seized as evidence, and I want this officer's weapon and badge taken before he leaves this lot." "Sir, we can handle this administratively." Miller began, trying to salvage the situation. "Frank," Thorne said, his voice hard as steel. "He arrested me for pumping gas while black. He threatened to tow a city vehicle. He used excessive force. This isn't administrative. This is a lawsuit." Thorne looked up at the window of the gas station. Elias Cobb was no longer smiling. He was hiding behind a display of potato chips. "And get the name of the clerk who called it in," Thorne added. "He filed a false police report." Vincent stood there, stripped of his power, stripped of his ego. He looked small. "Sir, I have a family," Vincent whispered. Thorne looked at him with a mixture of pity and resolve. "So do I, officer. So do the thousands of citizens you've bullied over the last 5 years. Today, you picked the wrong one." Thorne reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed a number. "Get the mayor on the line. Yes, it's an emergency." The fallout was swift, public, and brutal. The video of the arrest went viral within 24 hours. The image of the city legal director, a man who had spent his life serving the law, being manhandled against his own car by a smirking officer, was played on every news channel from CNN to the BBC. Officer Kyle Vinson was placed on unpaid suspension that afternoon. The internal affairs investigation was the fastest in the department's history, largely because the victim was the man who usually oversaw such investigations. Vinson was fired 3 weeks later. The review board found that he had violated 14 separate department policies, including bias-based policing, unlawful arrest, and excessive force. Elias Cobb, the clerk, was fired by the gas station corporation before the end of the day. He was also charged with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor that carried a heavy fine and a permanent mark on his record. But the real cost came in the civil suit. Marcus Thorne didn't sue for the money. He didn't need it. He sued to send a message. The lawsuit named the city of Detroit, the police department, and Kyle Vinson personally. The settlement was reached in record time, $6.4 million. Thorne donated every cent of the settlement to a legal defense fund for victims of police brutality. But he didn't stop there. He used his position to rewrite the city's policing contracts. He implemented a zero-tolerance policy for bias complaints, 2 strikes, and you're out. He mandated that officers could no longer arrest for low-level, quality-of-life infractions like loitering without supervisor approval. Kyle Vinson lost his career. He lost his pension. He is currently barred from working in law enforcement anywhere in the state of Michigan. He works construction now, and every time he sees a police cruiser drive by, he feels a knot in his stomach, the ghost of the life he threw away because he couldn't check his own prejudice. Marcus Thorne remained the city legal director for another 5 years before retiring. He walks with a slight stiffness in his shoulder on rainy days, a reminder of the handcuffs. But he walks with his head high. As we close this story, I want us to take a moment to reflect. This ended with justice because the victim was a powerful man. He had the knowledge, the resources, and the connections to fight back. But what if Marcus Thorne had been a school teacher? What if he had been a mechanic? What if he had been just a regular guy trying to get to work? Would the outcome have been the same? Or would he be sitting in a jail cell right now with a record that ruined his life? That is the question that should keep us up at night. Justice shouldn't depend on who you know or what title is on your business card. It should be the default setting. Officer Vinson saw a black man and assumed criminal. Elias Cobb saw a black man and assumed threat. Until we break that instinct, until we judge people by their actions and not our assumptions, this story will happen again. And next time, the victim might not be the legal director. What do you think? Should officers be personally liable for settlements in cases of proven bias? Or is it the department's responsibility? Let me know in the comments below. And if you believe these stories matter, if you believe the truth needs a spotlight, hit that like button and share this video. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes open. Keep